everybody, welcome to Wild Boy Movies, the place to talk movies, and today we're going to be reviewing Thunderbolts, the latest installment of the MCU and also the final film of Phase 5. Right now I'm going to have some information up on screen for you to read, like director, runtime, and PAA rating. All of that will be up on screen for you to read right now. But be sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and comment down below your thoughts on Thunderbolts. But without further ado, let's get right in to the pros. Alright, starting off, I just want to go ahead and say that this movie, Thunderbolts, is a huge breath of air and relief for the MCU, because if you've been online and taken a look at like the critic reviews for the MCU or even the audience reactions, people have started to turn a bit on the MCU and not enjoy some of their recent works like Eternals, Quantumania, or Brave New World. And some audiences have not been very happy with some of the decisions that the MCU has made and has been pretty vocal about their complaints with the MCU. But Thunderbolts is one of those movies that MCU fans says that the MCU is totally back. Like, people were saying that when Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 came out like 2 years ago in 2023, and I think the same thing can be said for Thunderbolts here in 2025. Although I haven't completely hated any of the recent MCU movies, I do find them at minimum to be like good. But like the last movie at the MCU, Brave New World, I was going in with like low expectations. Here with Thunderbolts, I went in with pretty high expectations, expecting like a fun movie from what we got from the trailers, and I felt like that they delivered on that here with Thunderbolts, but they went ahead and delivered more. And what I'm talking about is that this movie went ahead and tackled the idea of self-worth, and I don't know if it was a coincidence, but Thunderbolts happened to drop in the same month that is Mental Health Awareness Month, and yeah, I feel like that Thunderbolts tackles the idea of self-worth very well, particularly with the character of Sentry / The Void, that allowed our heroes of the Thunderbolts to relive some of their darkest past and darkest memories and reflect on that so that they could become better people. I mean, to quote Bucky Barnes in the trailer, you either do something about it now or live with it for the rest of your life. And it wasn't just them tackling the subject matter of self-worth, they also went ahead and utilized practical effects. Now, when I say practical effects, I don't mean that Marvel was literally turning people into shadows like we've seen in the trailers. No, that's clearly CGI. What I mean is, they utilize practical environments and practical stunts in here. Like, I'm sure a lot of you have heard that Florence Pugh wanted to do a stunt where she jumped off the second tallest building in the world, and Marvel actually did that. And there are other instances in here where you could tell that, yeah, that is an actual practical environment instead of our actors standing in front of green screens, because that was one thing I was critical with Captain America Brave New World. I don't remember if I mentioned it in the review, but there are times in that movie where you could tell Sam Wilson and Anthony Mackie were just standing in front of like a green screen because of those extensive reshoots. Here with Thunderbolts, they utilize a lot of practical environments, and that's just refreshing because the MCU has been criticized for like over-reliance of CGI within like the past few years, primarily in like the multiverse saga, and most critically in Thor: Love and Thunder, at least in my opinion. But I like how Marvel went ahead and utilized practical environments and sets for this movie instead of relying on CGI. You might think with all of the characters from other MCU properties like Black Widow, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, or Ant-Man and the Wasp, you feel compelled to like have to watch those movies and shows in order to understand these characters and know what they've been through. I'm here to tell you that you don't necessarily have to watch those projects because they do a good job of explaining what these characters been through in like their solo respective projects, and you don't really have to watch it in order to understand these characters' backstories and what they've been through, because they do it and tell it pretty well. Now, if you've seen those projects, it's a bonus because you see what these characters went through in their respective projects, but you don't necessarily have to watch those projects in order to understand Thunderbolts because they do a good job of explaining these characters' backstories and what they were doing in those respective projects. And off that note, this movie also does a good job of just telling its story and not being the main focus. We really haven't had that since like Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, where this movie is just focused on telling the story of these misfits having to team up to fight off against the Sentry slash Void, and that's its main focus of the movie. It's not focused on setting up Doctor Doom or anything. It's not focused on setting up the Avengers and the new team that Sam Wilson's going to be forming since that was teased in Brave New World. No, this movie was focused on telling its story, and it did that very well. Now, yes, I did say that this movie is like completely standalone and you don't have to watch anything, and they don't tease anything in the movie. Those post-credit scene though, they do tease the big future of the MCU, and I'm thinking about making a video breaking down those post-credit scenes, so if you've seen the movie, stay tuned for that video. The cast and characters in here also do a pretty good job in here. You got Florence Pugh as Yelena Belova, who honestly people have been praising online ever since seeing Thunderbolts. And yeah, I get why people are praising Florence Pugh in this movie because she does a really good job as the character of Yelena Belova. David Harbour as Red Guardian was basically the funny guy. Like, he had 99% of the jokes in here, and all of them were basically funny. You also got Riot Russell as John Walker, who did a good job of like this guy who just has like, I don't know how to explain it, but he was the previous Captain America and it's not, and I like the personality they gave John Walker in here. Sebastian Stan as the Winter Soldier. Again, I was hoping that this movie would make the Winter Soldier a cool character, and here he had a cool sequence that we've seen in the trailers. Hannah John Kamen as Ghost also did a good job. Lewis Pullman in here did a really good job as the character of Bob, aka the Sentry slash the Void, and I cannot wait to see what they do with the Sentry in Avengers Doomsday. I can't lie, they made the Sentry in here such a cool character, and I want to see more of this guy, whether that be in future Avenger movies that we know he's going to be a part of, like I mentioned earlier, or in his own standalone project. Like, I would honestly be down with a Sentry TV show or movie, just him being awesome. And I don't think I even need to bring up Taskmaster just because, yeah, no point of even bringing up that character, not without spoiling it. And I also really dug the team dynamic in this movie because, yes, like the majority of the Thunderbolts team are just super soldiers like the Winter Soldier, Red Guardian, and US Agent. But they do a pretty good job with the dynamic and chemistry in the movie that I really grew to really like this version of the team. And when it was first announced, I was like, where's certain characters like the Abomination or Zemo? But here I do really like the lineup they chose, and especially after the movie, I'm quite happy with this Thunderbolts team just because of the different unique power sets, mainly for the character of Ghost, but also the team dynamic, because I think that was just something that was completely well done in this movie. But really, this is one of those movies where it has people saying the MCU is back, and I totally agree with that. Even though I haven't hated any of the recent MCU movies, I quite enjoyed a lot of them, but most of them were just good. This one was just great, and I think it's just as good as like Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. But however, there is one major con I do have with the movie, so let's just get into that con. Now honestly, I don't have that many nitpicks with Thunderbolts. I think it's a really good movie and really enjoyable. I think you guys should definitely check it out. But my major criticism with the movie is that there was basically no suspense whatsoever. Now, I don't mean that in terms of like suspense for like the New York City being engulfed in like shadows. Like, there was some big stakes there. What I'm talking about is are some of the characters making it out alive, because Yeah, I would have that suspense in like the fight between the Void and the Thunderbolts. However, I didn't have that because Marvel decided to have that 5.5 hour long chair live stream where they basically confirmed the Thunderbolts are gonna be in Avengers Doomsday, and that basically means that almost all of these characters are making it out alive so that they can be in Doomsday. Like, that was just a flaw I had, not just with this Thunderbolts movie, but with that chair stream in general. Like, why flat out spoil the Thunderbolts? Because this was described as like Marvel's version of the Suicide Squad. We are expecting some characters to die, only for them to be like, no, we'll just reveal that a lot of these characters make it out alive in a 5 hour chair stream. Because why not? Like, that was just a major nitpick I have with this movie. But putting that aside, I really enjoyed this movie. There aren't really that much nitpicks I have with it. This is truly one of those MCU movies where we're back and the hype is real, and this might be definitely top 3 Phase 5 MCU movie, and maybe top 5 MCU Phase 5 project altogether. We can't be sure until we get the end of Phase 5, which is said to be Ironheart, but this really proved that the MCU still has it. So for my scorecard, I'm gonna give Thunderbolts 4.5 stars, with the score out of 10 being 9 out of 10, with the percentage being 90%, with a grade of A minus, with my final verdict being huge refresher for the MCU. But that was my review for the Thunderbolts. I want to hear from you guys. What are you guys' thoughts on this movie? Go ahead and leave that down in the comment section. And while you're at it, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and stay tuned for a video of me breaking down the post-credit scenes for Thunderbolts, because they were just big that I definitely want to go ahead and break down and talk about it and theorize where things go next. But until then, have a great day.